Hello everyone, welcome to Data Ops Unleashed. Today is March 17th and we have an exciting panel with us and we are here to talk about creating a data-driven culture. So my name is Sanjeev Mohan. I am part of Gartner, a data and analytics team. I look after some of what we used to call big data space, but it includes all the modern data and analytics architectures. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome an August panel consisting of 4 members. So I will moderate this panel. We have Sarah Gadd. She is a global head of data and analytics intelligence solutions at Credit Suisse, based out of Zurich. And then we have Kumar Menon. He is Senior Vice President, Data Fabric and Decision Science Technology at Equifax. We have David Lloyd, Chief Data Officer at Ceridian, and Paloma Gonzalez Martinez, and she joins us from Mexico. She's a Chief Data Officer at Alpha Credit. So with that, I will go ahead and kick off the panel. I have a set of 3 questions that I will be asking. And we will go in alphabetical order. So we'll start with Alpha Credit, then pass on to Equifax, Ceridian, and Credit Suisse. So my first question, and we start with you, Paloma. The question is, how has data architecture evolved over time for you? And if you were to do it all over again with some of the present technologies, what will you do different?
Sure. This is a great question for us actually, because we are redoing it again. So okay. I've been in Alpha Credit for 6 months only. I previously worked at Adevinta, the online classified business before, but right now I'm here and I'm redesigning the whole data strategy, because we really want to address our challenge ahead. So what we are doing now in terms of data architecture is we are focusing on 2 main aspects in the way we are designing it now and changing and migrating all our infrastructure. First of all, our business needs, because sometimes we design our data architectures in terms of the data and not on the business needs actually. So right now, what we are aiming to is to really understand the user end to end. So from the beginning, from the behavior we have in our clients, in our digital products, and also in the transaction. So we really need to understand and be able to join the data from the different sources, from events, from our transactional databases, in order to really understand end-to-end our user and to do this more comprehensive understanding of the user. So that is one thing we have in mind when we are designing this infrastructure. And the other one is we have new technical needs in terms of our architecture, and I'm talking about we need to really democratize the data and to make it available for all the organization, but at the same time, so it should be simple enough so everyone has access to the data, but at the same time, it has to be really, really robust, so we can have all these new capabilities of machine learning, deep learning, and so on. So our infrastructure needs to address both things to be easy enough to have data available for all the organization, obviously with the different needs, and also for the most more robust part of it in terms of doing more sophisticated algorithm and analysis to really use the data to have this competitive advantage in the market. So I would say that those are the things that we are focused on right now when we are transforming our data architecture.
That's great. Thank you, Paloma. Kumar, how about yourself? What are you seeing in this space?
Sure. Hello, I'm Kumar Menon, and I run all of engineering for Equifax's global platforms. That includes, all of our data platforms, our analytical ecosystems, our decisioning platforms, as well as our model ops capabilities. And this is again a fantastic question, and I think Paloma hit some of the very specific points that most companies are trying to achieve. And we're going through a similar transformation ourselves. And what we are trying to do here is, one of the biggest challenges we have when you run a massive data environment, and we are a data and analytics company at heart, is really our ability to bring our predictions, our insights, quickly into production. So we have a pipeline of innovation happening with data scientists, looking at data that we bring into our ecosystem, building, new capabilities, new insights, new predictive, models that can enable our customers, make better decisions. And the speed through which we want to, do this end to end, really ingest data quickly. Obviously ensure that it is compliant from a regulatory perspective. So really, the governance aspect, governance capability on the data, and then really deploy, our features and models, as quickly as possible. Even though we have to go through a pretty robust validation cycle, and then monitor the performance of these models. So really, how do you achieve, speed through that ecosystem is one of the things that we are focused on from an architecture perspective. And it is pivotal to how we are designing our future state, architecture. And what we have done there is to simplify, the technology platforms that that this entire value chain has to, go through. We are completely, cloud native. So, what we have done is we minimize the amount of translation that you have to make across through this value, through this value chain. So if our data scientists are building models, how can you, with minimal or no translation, deploy these models into production and monitor them, and then you have the feedback loop to be able to improve, right? So how do you achieve that? Really, that's been our focus. And being on the cloud has enabled that. We are able to, go into what I would call a fully managed, set of capabilities, which allows us to really focus on delivering, the software value and the data science community to really pick up, the data and build on top of that. So our focus has been really what we call as analytics to production and acceleration through that as much as possible.
So Kumar, this is great stuff. So are you able to share, like, are you on like the second iteration or third iteration? What worked in the first? What did not work? So did the technologies change since we are in data ops conference? Like, are you doing more automation, DevOps kind of stuff? And what technologies are you using?
Absolutely. DevOps, in fact, we coin it as DevSecOps, right? Because security is really critical for everything we do. In every region that we operate in the world, we operate on very high fidelity consumer or commercial, data. Obviously we have, PII information of the population in the regions that we operate in, and security is paramount, to us. So security is built into our stack, and our one of the things that you have to adapt and change when you shift from a true on-prem culture to a cloud-native culture is really how do you secure your architecture has to accommodate security through the entire stack. So what kind of encryption do you use on your data, and what kind of deployment topologies that you have, right? And how do you secure your infrastructure and then the software that and the applications that run on that? So DevOps is very critical because all of our pipelines, our deployment pipelines, are automated, right? So we ensure that we have, what we do is, we implement something as policy as code, which is really, we have policies that are checked during our deployment process. So what we coin that as pre-deployment and post-deployment checks. So anytime somebody is deploying something new, whether it is a new feature for the platform, and eventually we want to make that a practice even in deployment of our analytics artifacts like features and models, is that we check the compliance to policy, pre-deployment, and then we have a continuous monitoring process to check to ensure that those things stay compliant in production. So this is all automated through a DevOps pipeline, where security is checked through the pipeline. That's why we coin it as DevSecOps. And we collect evidence evidence that is put into a locker, so you can actually audit, what is deployed, how it was compliant at that point in time with the policies that were in place. So it's a highly auditable environment. So really, that for us, that has been super critical, because we are a highly regulated entity, and to ensure that this whole pipeline is automated, improves productivity and speed, but it also improves quality of how you bring things into production, and also ensures that you have the auditability that is needed for all the external as well as internal audits that constantly happen in our ecosystem.
Great. Thank you so much. That was very eye-opening. Thanks for sharing that. So we'll move on to David. David, if you can give us some background of what your role is, how the architecture's evolved, and maybe something about bring some technologies so we can see what technologies are being used at Ceridian.
Yes, thanks, Sanjeev. And my name is David Lloyd. I'm the Chief Data Officer for Ceridian. We're one of the leading companies in the human capital management space. So much like Kumar, we're very, very aware of our obligations from a governance perspective in securing our customers' data. And I think to touch on that again lightly, but it's so incredibly important, security and data access have to be at the center of everything that we do. And I think every organization now, as they're becoming, as Kumar talked about, cloud native, or driving a cloud-first approach, which is what we're focused on, has to ensure secure access to that data. From concept to architecture, ingestion, all the way through to data provisioning. And that's so critical to not only the internal trust of the organization, but the external trust of the organization. It's a pillar, I know, for us at Ceridian. I think that cloud-first approach is the other part, really, that ensures successful access to the data. Who's authorized to do what is so critical. And this, again, permeates all aspects of how you look at your infrastructure. We have the very beginning with the source data. We have the ingestion component of that. We have the process and model components all the way to the end usage of the data. So I think that needs to always be top of mind. I think one of the things I've also noticed that for us, and I can speak for maybe my past experience as well, is it's the maturity of the platforms now being brought to bear, especially in the cloud environments. I think one of the challenges we had about 5 years ago, and it's speeding up now, is that the way that technology has changed and the trust that we can put in the cloud-based technologies to handle what is this highly complex process of getting data from its raw form to its usable form has gone through so much. The amount of effort and work that we might put into using, let's say, open source products 5 years ago, you may not want to apply those same products, but their maturity through the whole process to where we are today sees products like Presto and others being used because it can really deliver on that promise. And I know for us, whether you're in an Azure environment, which is what we focus on, but we also have AWS, it's also ensuring that those cloud environments really, from an architecture point of view, meet the needs that we have over time and try to future-proof, as you said, as much as possible. I think the one takeaway I would have looking at the whole concept of data and data architecture is now I would have to say that more data is better. I think there was a period of time where we would look at the volume of data we were all dealing with and say to ourselves, wow, that's just too much. We don't need that data. We're just going to more or less discard that. And now I think today, the argument is we can't consume enough data. It doesn't mean it's always organized, but the opportunity to take almost any data source we can get and make sure that we don't lose the fidelity of that data, I think is something that for me has changed dramatically over the last several years.
That's great. I'm noticing a very interesting theme that has emerged from the first three speakers, how critical data governance and security is in everything that you're doing. In fact, it reminds me, in Gartner, I was working on a research last year. It's called 2021 Planning Guide. and my team, we decided that we want to open our planning recommendations with data governance because it is so foundational. So it's great to see it's reflected in what you're sharing. With that, Sarah, you're next. It'd be, Sarah, maybe if you can also share if anything has changed with COVID-19. Like, we keep hearing people have done 3 years. I've even heard 9 years of work in 10 months. Any experience on that?
It feels like it. Certainly
Yes.
feels like it.
Like dog years. Yeah.
Sarah Gadd, no, it's been pretty crazy. So I'm the head of intelligence solutions at Credit Suisse, and work covers data platform, looking at there, as well as things like electronic communications, or Center of Excellence, machine learning, and the topic. I'd say it's been, I think that people have become more efficient because you're not spending your time jumping or physically traveling to meeting because now everything's done from your desk. At the same time, I'm not sure that's the whole lifestyle because people in line crazy hours every single day. The line between home and office, and since the office is now home, leaving the office was very difficult because you aren't able to leave your home. But it's been interesting from a global perspective to see how different regions have reacted. I think certain regions and down to individuals as well have kind of embraced it. So they were used to working in a virtual environment. They were used to connecting, holding meetings online, and other regions more used to doing face-to-face meetings. And that's how they got stuff done, and that all got turned on its head with COVID. Learning a new style, and it's really the play. You're on the executive board or whether you're up or on the ground, you're all doing Zoom. Put a dog barking in the back, and there's music being played by your kids after school, and everyone is in the same boat, and it makes everybody human. So I think it's brought a human table. And when we look at productivity, as productivity has increased, I just always wonder at what cost on the human side as well. So I think it's a bit of a balance, right? I don't think you could keep up the momentum necessarily over a prolonged period of time. People would burn out. It's been pretty crazy. I mean, you got kind of coming out to the other side of it in the US, especially. I'm not sure what it's like in Mexico, Paloma, but certainly it's somewhat in Europe. Things are dragging their heels a little, taking a bit longer to get to the whole vaccine picture. But we're waiting patiently. I would say on the comes to data architecture and what we've seen change, Credit Suisse has been around for 165 years, right?
Sarah, if you don't mind,
there is a lot of legacy architecture in there, 50 corporate decisions, and so you're dealing with a lot of different domains, a lot of M&A, merger and acquisitions. It's not easy just to rip all that out and start again and put it all on cloud. That would be great. So we have to do things in a manner that makes sense. And with the data tying the governance to execution, I think both Dave talked about that, or governed and make that innovation execute value is key. And you do driving it or attribute-based access control versus a role-based access control.
Hi, Sarah.
Yes, can you hear me?
I think we've lost. Yeah, your audio has been cutting out. So maybe if you turn your video off, it might help.
Can you hear me, Sanjeev? Or?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can hear you now. Hi, can you hear me? Can everyone else? David, Kumar, can you guys hear me?
I can hear.
Yep.
Can I?
Yep.
Yeah. Please go ahead, Sarah. It might work better now that we don't have the video. Okay, I think we are having some technical difficulties. So I'm actually going to move us along to the next question. I think before we lost Sarah, she was talking about.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's still cutting out. So Sarah, we are going to move to the next question. So we'll go in the reverse order. So David, if I'll ask you this question, how are you finding the roles in your data teams? Like which ones are hardest to get? Which roles do you think are evolving in this, accelerated digital initiatives? How the roles are changing?
Certainly. There's 4 kind of guiding principles I look at through the hiring process as we go forward and we scale up as well. One of them, maybe I can actually look at it differently. It's how that candidate's eyes light up around data. And what I mean by that specifically is, collection and aggregation of data from within the organization or outside the organization is critical. What I want is individuals that really see the data opportunity and then can almost articulate that. So when I look at individuals we're hiring, one of the things that I'm very proud of with Ceridian is the richness of our data. It creates so many opportunities. And so one of the things I look for, do individuals actually understand that? I think the second thing I look for is people that I like the whole concept of exploration with data. Part of our challenge is getting the right data to the right people, but I think many of the tools and the platforms that we have now solve that kind of what, but not the how. And so I look for individuals that are very comfortable with data exploration. They can tell the story about how they actually apply that in their day-to-day lives or in their professional lives when they're really diving into data. I think the third thing I look at all the time is how people actually handle the concept of failing fast against hypotheses. I think one of the interesting challenges is, are you a person that looks at data and becomes so fixated with it that you can't walk away from it and recognize it doesn't really solve the problem? So many of the things that we try to extract out of data from a hypothesis point of view arguably they're all noise. There's no signal, and we have to have the ability to step away from that. So I like to hear stories as well from individuals, whether they're engineers or they're practitioners, about how they went through that discovery process and were able to say, this is a great idea, we see a signal here, versus this was just a lot of noise and in the end it wasn't the right fit. I think the fourth one is storytelling or presentation skills. As we know on the analytics side, as well as the data science side, it's not just the data, it's the way you actually put the story together effectively that really helps you drive the importance of that data and how that can be leveraged. If you can't communicate, you're stuck no matter how good the data is typically. So those are 4 very general things that may fall outside the standards. Do you know Python? Do you know how to apply models and things related to that we might commonly look for? The one item that you talked about with IT is really critical for us. And what I've said is, we've always been very fortunate with our IT organization. They are the enablers of our platform. They are the ones I turn to and work with from an architectural perspective and an executional perspective. So they have created that platform for us and constantly seek to extend it or simplify it on a constant basis. And that to me is what has been really the critical partnership between our data group and actually the IT organization.
That's great. So David, this is great. We got a memorable line from you from the previous question, more data is better. And from this conversation, we are learning that the person you hire should be in love with data.
They should. They have to be a data explorer, a data splunker, someone who loves to really get into the data and discover.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So, Sarah, hopefully we can hear you better. So we are talking about, like, you know, what roles are you looking for? Yeah. Sarah, I don't think we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
It's, yes, we can, but it's a bit choppy.
You can. Okay, good. Can or you can't?
We can. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, let me. It's so funny we started this. Once you get going, it all goes south.
Yes.
So I would say what I caught from the back end of David's conversation from when I rejoined, I couldn't agree more. I think that, you know, the storytellers around data are pretty critical. And the one area that we seem to, I'd say, is actually more in the domain, probably a little less in the science domain. So we're seeing quite a lot of commoditization of data science tooling, and I expect that will continue. Growth scientists need scientists to get into the details, but the engineering piece, the data ops, if you like, being able to build those pipelines and really deliver the value from the quality governed data is the critical mind. I think the other area probably see a big growth in is around semantics and the understanding of semantic models, logical data models, so overlaying a fabric across your landscapes, understanding of what the data means, so it's easy to query across different sources, aggregate value. And from a semantic side, being able to then understand the relationships between that data. So you can understand how one piece of data impacts another and may add value to your, an insight to the question you're asking. That semantic skill set is pretty hard to find. And I think we're going to see a growth in the need for that, especially with cloud, which was called, that's the original where it came from. So.
Very interesting. So the data ops, the operationalization skills, and the semantic layer skills are the ones where you see most growth and challenge. But the machine learning, data science is getting commoditized. So great.
I say more commoditized. You still need data scientists. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
They're not going to go away. We need them for explainability. But yeah, no, certainly data engineering. Engineering generally is a key skill that will always be around. We've had it since we built roads and bridges, and we certainly need it with the data.
Very interesting. So Kumar, how about what are you seeing?
Yeah, but I think you know, David and Sarah hit the right points. I think you know, one area that, you know, we have kind of, you know, aspired to, you know, become good at is really at that intersection of engineering and data science, right? How do you bring that cross-functional knowledge, you know, to not only how you build platforms and how you build models and features, but, you know, on the deployment side, how do you bring that timeline down, you know, dramatically, right? Reduced translation, because if you write in one language and your production systems run a different language, you have to translate that into a different language, which means you got to revalidate the models. You may lose, you know, certain, capabilities, you know, when you go into the production environment. Your data might look different. So how do you make sure that, you know, the analytics community within the organization has a feel of what it is, to work in a production-like environment. In the sense, you're looking at the same data schemas, you're looking at the same frequency of data, the temporal nature of data is exactly the same. So they're able to relate to it, and there is minimum translation. So that's been a challenge that we are trying to solve and automate as much as possible. And that skill has been difficult to find. You understand a data engineer that understands, obviously, the concepts of data science and what are the challenges data scientists face, and data science folks who understand what it means to run in a disciplined manner in the production environment, right? And then of course, really top engineering skills, that can build highly resilient platforms that are, highly available, right? Can handle massive throughput and ensure that they are built on an architecture that's flexible enough to adapt to regulatory changes, which happens very constantly in some very highly regulated. And then as you overlay the security aspect top of the stack, how do you still maintain the performance? I mean, how do you ensure that your encryption capabilities still deliver the same level of millisecond, microsecond performance that you're looking for when you're making critical decisions, right? I mean, those are skills that are difficult to find. So I always say this, that when you move from a traditional on-prem environment to a cloud, you actually have to have a slightly full stack set of skills. And it's no longer good enough to just be a very good Python programmer or a very good Java programmer, or a Lang programmer, right? You just need to have a lot more broader understanding, of the topology that you're working with. And I think that's really the skill. How do you onboard people who have the aptitude to learn that way, and then retain those people? Once retaining is also a big challenge, because this market is really hot, and good people always get picked off again.
So it's my hypothesis that on premises we always had a very strong data architect. We don't see that in the cloud. We have a solutions architect. In my opinion, a solutions architect most of the time is coming from an infrastructure and operations background. But to your point, Kumar, all these skills are merging. And you need to have all kinds of data management skills, identity and access management, data security, data privacy, regulatory, how to future-proof, which approach to pick, and I think there's a gap there. We have not trained a person to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's not like looking for a unicorn, but you just have to figure out how to put a team together, that can bring all these skills together, and that is the biggest challenge.
Right. I agree. Paloma, what has been your experience?
Sure, I completely agree with all that has been discussed. I completely agree with the skills and how challenging it is to find it in the recruitment process. I like to highlight two additional things, and especially when we are talking about how to create this data-driven culture amongst all the organization, is that we really need to find, and it's quite hard, to find these data profiles that are really interested in the storytelling, which David mentioned, but it's especially important when to have this evangelization process, to call in some way, no? Because if you really want this culture to be in the whole culture, in the whole organization, you need to have these profiles of people that are able to communicate and to really transmit the importance and the value of this really sometimes complex models. So sometimes it's quite hard for I like to call it non-data people. It's quite hard to understand why we are doing this, how does it work, and how do we really have this buy-in of the whole organization in these projects, is to really be able to communicate the importance of this kind of models, of these initiatives, and so on. So this is something that sometimes we forget because we focus on how the data team is performing, if we have the right set of skills in the data team, but what about the rest of the organization? And I believe that we as data leaders have this, well, we can have this commitment to really help the rest of the organization to join this well, this data-driven culture. So I only wanted to highlight and to add on everything that everyone else said.
That is great. So unfortunately, we were only given 40 minutes and we have surprisingly surpassed that. We could talk for another few hours, but I think this is where we may have to end. But before we go, any last words anyone wants to add? David, you want to leave us with another memorable line? Sorry, picking on you.
I'll actually play off something that Kumar was talking about. And what I would say for organizations, especially since one of the questions was around hiring, is stop looking for unicorns. I think you have to build multidisciplined teams. And I think like we always used to look for the engineers with 8 to 10 years of experience and everything else. Right now there's, based on some of the studies, there's 250,000 open headcount around data science positions, and most educators only feel about 23% of those graduates have any data background or data science skills. So I think we have to look at how we upskill and really invest in our business leaders as well as our employees to actually be great data consumers. And so stop looking for unicorns. Let's grow what we need and build multidisciplined teams to deliver on the vision for data science and organizations.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other last words, Sarah, Kumar, Paloma?
I couldn't agree more. I was going to say, I couldn't agree more with David to say, unicorns are rare. It's like a diamond in the rough, right? So building teams that consist.
Hi, Sarah. I'm sorry, we are not able to hear you.
At the end of the day, you want to deliver value, and the guys of client-facing or working directly on the business lines really know what the value is.
Sarah, I think we'll have to end here. I want to thank everyone on the panel. You guys were amazing. I wish we could do this more often, and I wish we could do it in person. Hopefully, once we are over with this COVID-19 shelter in place, we will get together and do this in person. So thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.